recent days I have become completely enraged. Yes, indeed. At first I thought it was the onset of rabies. However, it was something entirely different. I went to the vet, and he told me there was nothing that could be done. It was all the result of my research project on Jacob Zuma. Yes, indeed, I have been researching Zuma's shady arms deals. And just to do a thorough job, I was also considering the possibility that perhaps they decided to buy Patria arms vehicles from Finland, of all places, instead of actually using a locally made or locally designed equivalent, due to a lack of skills in the market. Well, that's for another video. But what I did come across was a certain page on Armscorps' website. In his last video, Kaya wrote something to the effect in the comments section below that affirmative action came about because white companies did not want to employ blacks even though they were qualified, and it was done to protect black labor and black skilled operators. That is very interesting. That is very interesting because on this page provided by Armscorps, what do they say? They have a skills shortage. Yes, that's right. Armscorps are short of skills. What they also say is they want Armscorps employees to reflect the true demographics of the country. Well, I suppose that's only fair, isn't it? But what is bizarre is this. They mention something I have never even heard about. They mention something called JIPSA. Now, what is this JIPSA, you may wonder? I'll tell you what it is. JIPSA is the government's initiative to actually develop skills within the country. It is an initiative to try and satisfy the demand of the economy for skilled workers and skilled technicians and engineers and doctors and everything it may need, because there is a skills shortage. This is absolutely bizarre. It's bizarre because the government, in its infinite wisdom, feels affirmative action should stay. Fancy that. There aren't even enough skills to go around, and yet they want the luxury to be able to choose the person from the correct racial background to address various things from the past. Fair enough, it was bad back then, but you may as well just shoot yourself in the foot. Naturally, government's going to have its lines already, pretty much like the electricity crisis. They're going to go on about, yes, we created all this economic growth, blah, 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 and it's created deficiencies in the labour market. But still, if there are deficiencies in the labour market, surely you need to stop regulating it so much. Surely you need to open it up. If there is a surplus of people who perhaps are excluded, or even better to say, limited from entering the market. There might be the whole discussion from that point, oh well, it's because of all the white people who left the country and took the skills with them. Well, in that case, that surplus of white people that was there has gone. So, surely the market can be opened. So why limit the market still? Why not just open it to the remaining white people who have been sitting there and waiting for their opportunity? Or it may just create the situation where you actually lose those skills. In my case, where there weren't enough available options at the time, and I did have a British passport, so, well, I left the country. Here, this initiative looks to address a skills shortage, and yet you have skills leaving the country, skills leaving every day. This shortage in the labour market has been created purely by legislation. Think of it like this. In Italian banking history, at one stage, banks were limited by the amount of money they could loan out. As a result, interest rates were high because money was in shortage. When this law was repealed, the interest rates of the country dropped, and this was because there was an availability of money. Foreign investors may not like this particular policy because it smothers competition in the labour market. One may have to pay more for less available skills. This is not good. Isn't it strange how ESCOM, who have had a long-standing affirmative action policy, now have to go on an international recruitment drive? And the skills they buy from overseas are certainly costly. They are bought at a premium. Likewise, Carte Blanche produced an excellent documentary on emigration, and in this documentary it was cited that the people who are leaving the country are taking the economy with them. These are skilled people leaving the country. They also stated that in 2007, under 8% of the people who passed high-grade maths were black. But for those who want, in that little piece there, you have the statistics you so badly crave. Truth is, the entire system just cannot produce enough people from a previously disadvantaged background. At a simple glance here, one can see that affirmative action excludes a large intellectual resource. We must consider we are part of a global competitive market, in which there is also India to contend with. And India has major advantages. Not only does it have cheap labour, it also has a large skilled job market. Yes, in fact, there are pharmaceutical companies in the West who are actually moving their research facilities to India and hiring Indian researchers because they are actually cheaper. South Africa may go with the whole discourse of, well, let's just lower the standards in that case. Well, if I was an investor and comparing the opportunities in India or in South Africa, I would choose India. So between China, Vietnam, Indonesia and Mexico, it seems that India have slipped into the avant-garde. Yes, in actual fact, India not only can produce things, it can provide the academic resources behind them and creative solutions. But looking at this initiative realistically, it almost seems to be a confession that skills within the country will be lost and one will have nothing to fall back on but this particular government initiative. I thought with my videos that I would never be able to challenge affirmative action, and yet when I see this initiative, it just seems to be a confession that the entire policy has failed. So within this page on Armscore's website, I see a conflict. I see a conflict between industrial needs, the need for academic resources, and the conflict with a political vanity. In my opinion, this affirmative action has begun to turn into another thing. It seems a final extreme measure to address the failure of government to provide an effective education and develop skills, and invest in the human resources of the country, and create a true racially fair job market, where a person is judged on their merits and abilities, and previously disadvantaged people can finally get the job they deserved due to their talent.